For our meditation, I'm reading two things. One is on the back of the calendar, and I'm sorry that each of you does not have one. The poet and the thinker sought for truth. God bent and held a hand to either. To the poet he put out his hand from a cloudless vault of blue. The poet saw it and climbed. To the thinker, God stretched his hand from the heart of a mighty cloud. The man looked up and saw the cloud move, and he mounted. On far-off mountainsides they labored, looking upward. Then he who looked into the blue cried, "Brother, you are wrong. What lies above you is but dark cloud. Reach it, and you will find it only cold mist. In it you will wander forever. But over me in the blue sky is that which calls to me. I rise to it." The thinker answered, "Fellow, you are dazed. The sun has shone too long upon your head. What lies above you is an empty vault of blue. Enter it, you will find it empty space. You will grasp air. But over me in that dark storm cloud lives that which calls me. When the lightning flashes and the thunder rolls and the cloud is riven, I see illuminated that which beckons me. I mount to it." The poet cried, "Fool." The thinker cried, "Blind." They both mounted. At last, when they were very tired, they reached their mountain summits. God bent and took his poet in his left hand and his thinker in his right hand, and he laid them on his breast. When they awoke, they were side by side upon the heart of God. One whispered, "By the left hand, I," the other, "By the right hand, I." And they heard the truth beat. The social structure, the economic order, the world of nature, all of these apparently mindless forces in the world repeat one theme over and over. This is a universe. This is a universe. Over and over. Only man says it isn't. And he builds his little altar, worships his little God, organizes the resources of his little life to defend his little barrier, and he can't do it. It is our faith that in the presence of God, with his dream of order, there is neither male nor female, white nor black, Gentile nor Jew, Protestant nor Catholic, Hindu nor Buddhist nor Muslim, but a human spirit stripped to the literal substance of itself. Wherever man has the scent of this eternal unity in his spirit, he hunts for it. In his home, in his work, among his friends, in his pleasures, on all levels of his functioning, always he seeks it. And that is why Fellowship Church is a normal church, not an abnormal one. And what a wonderful thing it is for us to anticipate the future in the present. still dews of quietness, till all our strivings cease. Take from our souls the strain and stress, and let our ordered lives confess the beauty of thy peace. Amen. Our heads, and those of us who knew him, and those of us who have only heard his name, but let us remember Alfred Fisk, who shared so deeply in the early days when there were no lights in the sky. Let the words of our mouth and the meditation of our heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord. Our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Four years ago, I clipped this poem out of the Christian Science Monitor, and I want to use it as a background for our thinking this morning. Everyone should be given the chance to be new every minute, not labeled and charted and listed in cataloged classification. Foolish words uttered yesterday are unsaid by the setting sun, washed away by the new moon tides. Fresh thoughts have already begun. Release me from patterned opinion. Let me be new, and I'll tear up the stagnant records I keep about you. You didn't expect that. Everyone should be given the chance to be born again. Minute by minute, the world isn't standing still, nor anything in it. Everyone should be given the chance to be new. I wonder how many of you present today remember how life was in the United States or in San Francisco 32 years ago. We were in the midst of war. The Japanese had been taken away from their dwelling places, had put in camps in the Middle West. Thousands of people from the West, Southwest, Southeast, Middle West poured into San Francisco and the neighboring environs to help us build the ships and do the other things so essential for the vast creative preparation for death. On billboards, huge caricatures of Japanese with great goggles and buck teeth. Life was uneasy, frantic and frantic, both. Many places that are clear and wide open now were closed then to many people. That year I had to visit one of our parishioners who lived in the Huntington Hotel, and the elevator operator insisted that if I wanted to see them, I'd have to use the freight elevator. Times were very difficult. Everywhere, not just here. All over the Western world. And it just may be that the moment when something new and fresh and creative is about to be born, apparently all the lights go out. In the days, for instance, in South Africa when the great Cecil Rhodes was getting together the vast empire, and the vigorous, vital, dynamic Zulus had to be subdued in order that the foundation may be laid for the new kingdom. At the peak of the greatest decimation of the Zulus, the birth rate of the Zulus doubled. Strange, isn't it, how life keeps coming on. During the period of the Black Death, when men were dying like flies, and there was no chance for those devout Catholics who were dying to have the last rites administered by the Church, because Rome was divided. Out of the ferment of the agony, the brethren of the common life were born. And what did they say to all these dying Catholics? The door to heaven, the highway to heaven, is not in Rome. It's in your hearts. To stretch it further, when Napoleon was at the height of his power, going across Europe like some mighty colossus, blotting out all sense of liberty for the ordinary man in a log cabin in Kentucky, Abraham Lincoln was born. Life is very queer. I don't understand it. But there is an essential quality of dynamism, of persistent energy that seems to be at the core of life, so that life is always being born, life is always coming on. Life never gives up, because it renews itself within itself. And that is why it is such a terrible thing to establish a ceiling for any other human being. There is a very striking picture in the New Testament, in the book of Revelation. I'd read it many times, but a few nights ago, some of my friends were so busily involved in whatever it was they were doing that I couldn't sleep. So I took refuge in the book. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I found myself reading the book of Revelation. And you ought to try it sometimes. You know, reading it when everybody else is at rest, at sleep, and all kinds of things come out of the woodworks. And I had read many times that there shall be a new heaven and a new earth. For the old heaven and the old earth are passed away. But it struck me at 3 o'clock in the morning what an absolutely radical thing this was. God is the place, heaven is the place where God dwells. And this daring, lonely dreamer on the island said, there shall come a time when the old heaven cannot hold God. And there has to be a new heaven. And of course, there can't be a new heaven unless there's a new earth. And perhaps 1,000,000 times, life will come to a point in the total creative push that the old heaven has to go. The old earth has to go. Life grows dingy on the sleeve of the old heaven. And if God is to be God in his heaven, what does this say that must be happening to him? Don't bother. Just let it rest. I pondered it. And I found myself saying to myself, I can't take any chances with the possibility of a new heaven. I know all the places to sit in the old heaven. All the faces are familiar, all the prayers are familiar, everything. I don't even have to stir my mind to be at home. And now you come, tampering with my ultimate security. And this is why it is so difficult to shift. Because heaven represents the ultimate security for the human spirit. It represents the be-all and the end-all, the goal towards which all striving takes place. And now you say to me, even ultimates grow. You believe that? Ultimates grow. Now Jesus saw this at times. Do you remember the incident when he said to Simon Peter, Simon Peter, lovest thou me? And Simon Peter said, Yea, Master, you know I love you. Feed my sheep. And then the second time, Jesus said, Simon Peter, lovest thou me? And the second time, Peter said, Yea, Master, you know I love you. And the third time, Jesus asked him, Simon Peter, lovest thou me? And then the book says in the translation, Peter was grieved because he asked him 3 times. But when you read it as it was originally written, something very interesting turns up. And please do not misunderstand me. I'm not trying to be an exhibitionist to show how much learning I have. But the only one way to do that is the way I'm doing it. The word that Jesus uses for love, when he asked Peter, Simon Peter, lovest thou me, is a nice, tame, possible word. Full of emotion, not much staying power. And Peter replies, Jesus uses a strong word. Peter replies, uses a weak word. Jesus says, Simon Peter, lovest thou me? And Jesus uses a word that has at its core love that is understanding. When Peter replies, he uses the word that means like a neon sign going on and off. The second time Jesus asked him, Simon Peter, lovest thou me? Jesus uses the strong word. The second time Peter replies using the off and on word, the weak word. The third time, now listen, the third time when Jesus asked Peter, Simon Peter, lovest thou me? Jesus uses the weak word. Now, Peter is grieved. Why? Because Jesus used the weak. I can't say the strong word yet. I can't say love as you ask it. But please, keep on asking me. Don't stop asking me. Because when you stop asking me, you make my feeling zero. And I can't grow. Don't take my present state as being permanent, and don't take me for granted. For if you take me for granted, I become a prisoner even of your faith and your love. I want the chance to be new, even though the thought of being new almost scares me to death, because it means I've got to give up all the things by which I am so comfortably surrounded. Ideas that I've had all through the years that have been my companion, so that I can think it automatically now. I can feel it automatically now. But if I'm new, it means that I've got to start all over again, all the time. And you get tired of that. The mind, and this is the heart of what I want to say, and I'm almost. The mind wants things settled. The mind wants things to stay put. The mind wants to settle in and know what it thinks about you so it doesn't have to revise it any time. It's automatic. Oh, that's him. So it turns on the automatic thing. The spirit is dynamic. It is full of energy. It wants always to push out, to find that which is yet to be but has not yet come to pass. The spirit represents hope. The mind represents stability, status, that which has been concluded. The mind is logical. It represents therefore. And that's why we want to get something settled. You ought to know, I want to know what you think of me, you want to know what I think of you, so you go on to the next thing. We don't like emotional surprises, you know. But the moment I establish your ceiling, I deal with you as if you were dead, because it means that even though you are alive, you are imprisoned in a status from which you cannot escape in my mind. And this is why dealing with our children, it is so important that we place over them the kind of hope that says, you aren't through yet. Life isn't through with you yet. And you have to keep on remembering that, because this is the only way that you can grow. So, in terms of the anniversary of this church, this is very important. It is not an accident that the symbol of the church is the growing edge. And the growing edge came many years ago to us from something that occurred one day when I was visiting the old Stanford University Hospital. I knew a nurse there, and she asked me if I would talk with the lady, and who had some degree burn, I don't know, third, fourth, second, I don't know what degrees burns go in, but they are degreed. And I went in to see her, and the nurse said, I want to show you something very interesting. And she pulled the sheet back, and she revealed a large burned area in the lady's arm. It was an ugly thing. And then she pointed out to me a pink rim going all the way around the edges of the burn. She said, that's the growing edge of the new skin. Where in you is the growing edge of the new skin? Where? Where in your thought about God is the growing edge of the new skin? Where in your thought about yourself is the growing edge of the new skin? Do you believe and act on that belief that life is finished, that life is rounded out, that it is complete, that there is no reason to continue to have hope in the presence of the withering disillusionments of life and experience? Or, as the young people say, do you continue to hang in there, hoping, thinking, feeling, acting as if you were a part of the growing edge, that life is not through with you, life is not through with this church, life is not through with the world. For remember that when life begins to grow dingy on your sleeve and you are bored with your days, remember that you may be through with life, but life never gets through with you, because God is a part of life. And as long as life is alive, life cannot die. And this is why, even where in terms that are theological, men have no hope about the future, about dogma, doctrine, and so forth and so on. Everywhere, in all civilizations, all cultures, all people, there always persists a faith in the renewing of life, so that the great doctrine of immortality that Christianity thinks sometimes it has a monopoly on, the great doctrine of immortality is a doctrine that springs out of the heart of man's experience with life. Because life cannot die, and do you know why it cannot die? And I'm through now. Because life lives on itself. Think about it. Life consumes itself. It keeps taking into itself life. And because this is true, life cannot die, and this is what I think is meant in the great doctrine of the resurrection, in the Christian faith, and in all other faiths, wherever men reach towards an ultimate understanding of the meaning of their days. So, don't give up your chance to be born again. And don't let anybody else force you to give up your chance to be born again. And in dealing with people, even with your enemy, give your enemy a chance to be born again. This is what love your enemy means. Don't give up the chance to be born anew, afresh. And if you do, you will find that you will die. Or you'll be still eating and breathing and sleeping, but you'll be dead. And everything you touch will die. And you will be a carrier of death, spreading your quiet pestilence all over the lives of those who walk the way with you. And the closer they get to you, the harder it will be for them to live. Don't take from anybody that person's chance to be born again. And don't give up your chance to be born again. For if you do, life will never forgive you. And you will spend your days wandering in the nighttime. I'm tired of sailing my little boat inside the harbor bar. I want to go out where the big ships float. out on the deep where the great ones are. And should my frail craft prove too slight for storms that heave those billows o'er, I'd rather go down in the stirring fight for light than perish to death by the sheltered shore. I must always be in the process of being born anew. Are you? For this moment, at this hour, in ways that we can understand and ways that we cannot understand, we give frightening gratitude to Thee in the presence of the overwhelming grace that has led us thus far in this place. Walk beside us and give to our faltering steps courage worthy of the treasure of life that Thou hast given us. Our Father. Amen.